Don't use ND filters on your action cam before watching this video. I made this huge mistake on my vacation in paradise, and I won't be able to recover my beautiful footage because of this mistake, and I don't want you to make the same one. I am going to tell you what common mistake I made, where is this mistake coming from, and how to fix it. And at the end of the video, I have a bonus tip for you in terms of using ND filters on your action cam as well. So stay tuned for that. Hey, Editor Tom here. For the next 2 minutes, I will talk about motion blur, 180-degree shutter rule, and why do we even need ND filters for it. So if you already know all this, you can skip to this minute. See ya. The simple answer is to get professional looking image. The one that looks much closer to how our eyes actually see the world. And naturally, we see the motion blur when there is movement. So, like now, I am recording in a shutter speed that allows my hand to be with a natural motion blur, not with like janky, very sharp looking hand while I am swinging it. And to achieve this look, we need to use the so-called 180-degree shutter rule. Okay, what is that? It goes back in time when filmmakers used the film cameras with a round shutter. It had a triangular opening. When it was spinning, the bigger the opening, the more light came into the film. So the film was much more exposed to the light. And all these professional filmmakers back then realized that in order to get this perfect motion blur that is the closest to how we received it with our eyes is to use 180-degree opening in the circular shutter. Nowadays, in most cases, we use digital cameras. Digital cameras are using digital sensors instead of film, and in many cases, digital shutter instead of physical one. And we have to simulate this effect by converting the 180-degree rule into this very simple equation for shutter speed. We have to take the frame rate value, which is how many frames per second is during your recording, and then double the frame rate value. For example, let's say you're shooting in 25 frames per second or 24. Double it, and here you have your proper settings for the shutter speed. So now your shutter speed should be 1/50th of a second. And the same goes with 50 frames per second. Then you just double it, so you have 1/100th of the second as your shutter speed. If it's 60 frames per second, then 1/120. Simple as that. So now your camera is set, but how does it do with the ND filters? Here they come. When you put those settings and there's like plenty of light coming into your sensor, these settings will extremely overexpose your footage. This is where ND filters are coming. They act like sunglasses for your camera. When you put the ND filter over a certain strength, then your footage becomes less exposed. You will get the proper exposure for your shot. I decided to buy beautiful ND filters for my Action 5 Pro. Without any test, I went on my vacation and started using it with those ND filters on for every shot. Oh boy, that was a mistake. I set up the value for my shutter speed to 1/120th of a second because I was shooting in 60 frames per second, so everything was in line here with what I knew about using ND filters and getting the most cinematic look out of the action cam. I never liked the footage from a typical action cam because it was so sharp. Problem was not the settings itself. The problem was EIS, electronic image stabilization, that is built in this camera. Unlike the Pocket 3, which is basically a gimbal with a camera on it, DJI Action 5 has to digitally crop the image and then adjust the footage based on what it actually sees. It compares one frame to another in order to adjust it so it is not shaky, it is not janky. And in order to do that properly, those stills, those frames need to be as sharp as possible. It doesn't come very well with this natural motion blur. It is especially visible on the edges of the frame. We have some smudges, especially when there is a lot of trees, movement is happening to the trees, and the camera in the real time, it just doesn't know how to fix it, and those weird artifacts are happening. Unfortunately, this is exactly what happened to me during my vacation. Here are the results. Yes, I was able to actually choose some better looking parts of the footage, and then I put it in my vacation video, and I will be able to live with that because it's not for Hollywood production. I didn't lose anything that is valuable, but for you, maybe when you're going to shoot something that you're going to get paid for, then maybe you should know about it and not make the same mistake. In the first place, I wanted to have better looking video, and now I actually have worse looking video. So I really wanted to get rid of that in the future. So I dig deeper. Here is the fix for this problem. I should in every possible settings, so you won't have to, and check how to achieve as much motion blur as it's possible to EIS to still be able to work properly. I went through all these possible settings to see from which point it doesn't work bad for the camera. So here are the results. Okay, so I want to do the test here in this rather not action cam friendly situation, because we have a lot of shades, we have a lot of light coming in, and it will definitely be difficult for the camera, but at the same time I want to show you the wiggles on the camera on those lower shutter speed settings. Let's start with 180 degree, which is 1/50 of a second, and I will run towards my DJI Pocket 3 and you will see the wiggles. Probably you will see the wiggles on the camera. Let's see. I am also having my Nano turn on. Let's start with the first test. Another settings, which is 1/60th of a second. Let's go. One 1/80th of a second. 1/100th. For this one, I need to bump up the ISO, so maybe let's do automatic ISO in between 100 and 800, because the ND8 filter is too strong for this shadowy environment. 1/120th. 1/160. And now I just removed the ND filter because I didn't want the ISO to go up that high. 1/200. Now 1/240, and I'm getting sweaty. 1/320. One over 400. One over 500. it might be too many trials, so let's now go up to 1/1000 of a second. 1/2000. 1/4000. And 1/8000, so the maximum for Action 5 Pro. Editor Tom here again. So I recently started this channel and I would really appreciate a like or a subscription, or preferably both, to motivate me to make even more videos in the future and maybe post more often. Okay, and here we also have a shake test for 180-degree rule, so 25 frames per second and 1/50th of a second. In this case, I did it with the ND32. Okay, same test with 1/60th of a second. And same goes to 1/80th of a second. Or 1/100th of a second. And with lower ND16. 120th with the same ND filter. 1/160, still 16 ND. 1/200th, still ND16, getting a little bit darker. And now we're doing 1/40th, but with the lower ND filter, ND8. And 1/320, but still with ND8. 1/400 still with ND8. 1/500, it's probably getting a little bit too dark. 1/1000th of a second. 1/2000 of a second. 1/4000 of a second. Here I needed to bump up the ISO because it was getting too dark. Last test, 1 to 8000 of a second. Okay guys, so I watched the footage and I wouldn't use any of it in any of my videos because it was so bad. That's why I need to redo the test, but this time I will be less demanding to the camera. So instead of shooting it in the shadows as we did in the first test, and instead of waving the camera like crazy in the second test, I will just walk fast and try to keep the camera steady. And we're doing it in the full sun, and we have those palms here to show the wiggles on and the constructions behind us. So let me put on the ND filters because right now I am recording in auto. Okay, so the ND filter is on, the 180-degree shutter rule is applied, and let's do the test. So fast walking and trying to keep the camera steady. 1/60th of a second. 1/80th of a second. 1/100th of a second. 1/120th of a second. 1/160th of a second. 1/200th of a second. 1/240th of a second. 1/320th of a second. 1/400th of a second. 1/500th of a second. 1/1000th of a second. 1/2000th of a second. 1/4000th of a second. And lastly, 1/8000th of a second. The ISO bumped up to 600 just to be able to see anything. And the sun is actually going behind the palm, so I need to end this test here. I will watch the footage and decide which shutter speed is the best for action cams to be used with ND filters. It will definitely not be 180-degree shutter speed rule, because it's just not made for action cams because of how much processing they are making. But definitely it is possible to use it with ND filters. It will make the footage much more natural with the correct motion blur, but it will definitely not be easy to use as it is right now. So it's kind of a hassle, especially if those ND filters are not variable. Like in my case, those are 8, 16, 32, and 64 separate ND filters. And it's kind of a hassle for me. To be honest, for the past few occasions, I tried to avoid using them. And to be completely honest with you guys, I highly recommend you to ease out a bit and maybe go ahead with this not that creamy looking motion blur with action cams, but at least you will be able to just grab the camera and shoot something really fast. It's not with a hustle as I do have with mine action cam using ND filters. To fix this smoogy looking footage while cranking the shutter speed down to achieve this very professional looking footage, in my opinion, we should not go lower than 45 degrees. Even if we are choosing the 45 degrees, we are still getting much smoother, natural footage in comparison to what our camera is doing in order to get the proper exposure without ND filters. We are actually having some crazy numbers, like 1/5000th of a second or more, which is like 2 degrees, much faster and shorter time when our sensor is exposed to light. That means frame that is taken is basically without any movement, without any motion blur, and that creates this very sharp, very unpleasant to the eye look. I promise you a bonus tip. Do not use ND filters when you're using a sunscreen and you go into water, as it is basically impossible to wipe it like you would normally do with the camera lens. The sunscreen is all over you, and even if you're trying really hard, the sunscreen will somehow reach the ND filter. It will ruin your footage without you actually noticing it. If you're interested in watching more camera-related type of content, please go and watch other of my videos. And if you stayed here for so long, consider subscribing and leaving a like, and see you in the next one.